You're listening to Chem Stories, a podcast series created by people with lived experience of P&P chemsex.
Hello, Disco Dolls. This is Captain Patrice speaking from the flight deck of Chem Stories Airlines. We're now in the second part of our YUL Creativity flight. Montreal host Éric introduces Mikiki, an experienced flyer who is also a performance and video artist and queer community health activist. The discussion touches on the glamour of the underground, the necessity of finding creative outlets as a survival strategy, and the complex, non-linear nature of navigating substance use while maintaining professional and artistic integrity. Should you experience turbulence while listening to this podcast, please visit our list of resources and services related to P&P chemsex in the episode description and on chemstories.ca. Thank you for choosing Chem Stories Airlines, where the journey is always a trip.
So I'm here with Mikiki. They are a performance and video artist and a queer community activist. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Mikiki.
Hi.
And so, Mikiki, you're based in Toronto and Gabrielle in Montreal. But we're in Montreal now. It's kind of the Montreal section of the podcast, but we could not have Mikiki with us. So we brought him from Toronto. And maybe on that, maybe we can just go to Mikiki a bit, because I'm curious to hear about your work, because you really do performance and video work that really are tackling, I would say, directly like through drug use and grief and loss also around drug use, about slamming, about injection, and about, you really have your art and your activism are really connected, I feel. And I would be really curious to hear about how did it all came, and how first maybe you how you became an artist and what happened, like what was the journey, and maybe that would lead us to what you do now.
Hi, I'm Mikiki, they, them pronouns. I was born in a small dairy farming town in Western Newfoundland. And I live in Toronto right now. Yeah, I say that I was raised by wild lesbians in the woods of Newfoundland, which is more culturally than actually, but actually, like I was a baby anarchist and was a part of this like youth activist group called Youth for Social Justice, and we were a multi-issue kind of group of kids just trying to do stuff, like make change in the world. And yeah, I got schooled by incredible older queer women. It was like I got to be a part of the process of trying to get sexual orientation included in the Human Rights Charter in Newfoundland and Labrador. And like sitting at those tables, it was like 16-year-old me and all of these like 30s, 40s, 50s older queer women who were so patient with me when I was so stupid and took up so much room. And when I went to art school, I wanted to basically just be a sign painter. I just was like, these things are wrong and we need to fix them. And the way I'm going to do it is by telling you what to do. But then I was lazy and stupid and didn't sign up for the painting class before it got filled up. So then I was like, oh, well, what am I going to fucking do now? So somehow, I don't know how, but I registered for a video course, and it was another incredible queer woman who taught that course. And then I just learned about the history of video art as like an activist medium, and because it didn't have the same histories as like painting and sculpture and like the Beaux-Arts tradition. So video was being used by people of color, was being used by queer people, was being used as a feminist tool, and that made me really excited. And also because it resisted the art market, like it was not commodifiable. And then I started realizing that all of my videos were essentially me performing for the camera, and then what would happen if I was outside of the frame of the camera. And so the performance and video kind of seemed like as a medium choice was because it was cheap and accessible. Like my body was the medium. And all I needed was my body and time and a camera, which I had access through schools and whatever. And now we all have access to kind of cameras all the time. Yeah. So wanting to do activist stuff. And then I worked as a sex ed teacher in the high school system in Calgary almost 25 years ago. Well, it was a long time ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And then worked in the HIV response in Ottawa and Montreal and Toronto and then worked in harm reduction. So I was running a bathhouse outreach team for people who were HIV positive in Toronto. We would all come out about our HIV status as a function of the work. Like we would take the microphone of the PA system and say, oh, okay, I'm HIV positive and I'm going to be in the outreach room. Come and ask me questions. And it was great because people would have such thoughtful questions as opposed to like, can I just get a packet of lube? I don't want any condoms, which was the normal interaction. But then people would have like really thoughtful kinds of interactions because they're like, oh, like my friend is positive and I don't know how to talk to them about it, or I'm nervous because my, whatever, just like actual meaningful conversations. And then I coordinated the team of peers who were doing that outreach, and everybody was dealing with substance use and poverty, like everybody on the team. And I mean, I made enough money to survive in Toronto at the time. Now I'm on disability and making art because I'm living the dream. But I could have a job doing social service work and not have any time to make my art and be really resentful, or I could deal with my complex PTSD and sparkling mental illness and make just enough to to keep my apartment and have time to focus on my art practice. And I'm much happier. The debt's not going anywhere. It wasn't going anywhere when I had the job either. So it's fine. The work is always kind of just what's happening in my life. I've talked about it with some other projects. Like I do a couple of projects about HIV criminalization. And one of the things that we talk in that performance is like, we're not going to give you a trigger warning because no one gives us a trigger warning about the experiences that we're having that we're reflecting in the work. Like, this is just my life. No one gives me a trigger warning for living it. Why do you need a trigger warning for witnessing me talk about it? And I get that is a flattening statement, and our lives are more complex and complicated than that. And like with this video that we have playing in the background right now, Red Flags, a love letter, it was like, I think it's important because, I have a history of injection drug use, of sexualized injection drug use, and witnessing that, like seeing these images could be a real trigger if I had not, if I didn't know this was what I was going to watch, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I think it's it's tricky. It's tricky.
Mm-hmm. And can you talk a bit about was this commissioned for?
Yeah, someone paid me to make this.
Yeah, that's amazing. No, and maybe just because we're looking at the video, and again we're gonna have the links in the description of the podcast. But I really enjoyed the video. Like I think it's a really powerful, and there's a kind of a documentary aspect about it that I like, but it's also very abstract and visual, and the sounds are really like, you use sounds of chemsex context, so we hear things and we see injection, we see people slamming, and you kind of have also interviews, discussions. So maybe I would like to just know how you did that. What was the process?
Yeah.
What was in your mind about when you did this video?
I think like one of the things that was available to me through my drug use was a connection to disinhibition, or to allowing myself to be an exhibitionist, allowing myself to film the sex I was having, and the Zoom room phenomenon was wasn't a core part of my sex life, but it was something that was available, and I found that really fascinating. The idea of performing.
The chemsexers knew about Zoom way before everybody else started to use Zoom.
Totally. And there were these folders that existed in some of the Telegram rooms that were promoting these Zoom chats, and they would be passed on between slammers. There's folders of people who had videotaped themselves injecting, and then shared these videos publicly. So there was this kind of semi-public dynamic of people kind of promoting or proposing a public relationship to their image as a injection drug user. And I found that really fascinating. So there were these videos, folders of these videos floating around on the internet, and I used that as a starting point, and then made with a bunch of very stylistic abstracting layers and imagery, and then made an initial kind of first take of this video, and then would play it in, like, I'd bring this, had a link for it that was like a not public link, and then would play it at sex parties when I was like fucking with people, and be like, is it okay if we like record the conversation? Can we talk about this while we're fucking? Can we watch this and also talk about it at the same time? And then, and then take those recordings and then add those in and kind of just layer and layer and layer. And then once I got to like a second take, then my friends came in and they viewed a kind of like third iteration or third version of the video. And then that's when they kind of provided those. So there's two voices that you hear throughout the video. They're kind of reflecting on both what the content is, but also what the content, what the content is and what it means to us as a community of people that were at that point all participating in chemsex.
Yeah.
And specifically the proposal that I made to Visual AIDS, who is the commissioning organization, like main contemporary art HIV organization in the world. The proposal was like, we understand injection drug use as the last stage before you die. This is how we kind of culturally understand injection drug use, is you are such an addict that you're one step from death. And I knew a lot of people that was not my experience. That was not our experience. There's lots of other lives that include an injection history or an injection present. And I wanted to create a cultural project or product, or like a video that represented a different relationship, a potentially neutral to positive relationship.
Yeah, you said in the description, representing pleasure beyond the frame of harm, which I found really like interesting and really exact and really different from what we see normally when we talk about injection.
Yeah, and it's, like there's that worry of, are you glamorizing it? Are you glamorizing it? It's like, well, can we also just acknowledge that pleasure exists in contexts that sometimes lead to pain and to complications? And there's lots of consequences that are positive, negative, and neutral to all of our decisions, but we still are entitled to make them.
Yeah. And I would say about glamour, I mean, but about glamour. No, but I feel like for me, I've always been attracted to drug use, and to drugs, and to images of drug users, and to this kind of life, and what we call the dark side, and the nightlife, and this kind of raw and undercover, like I would say, like the life that happens in the shadows, always attracted me. You didn't have to put it glamour, and it is what it is. It is, I would say, in a way, for many people, it is attractive.
Yeah, you could put lipstick on the pig, but we're still attracted to the pig.
Of course, and it's not. And even though like glamorizing it, it's not. I don't think it's. How can I say? It's not realistic. It is realistically glamorous and interesting and attractive. I don't know if glamorous is the right term, but it's the term we use. But I think for many people, it is really. I know a lot of gay men and queer people who, for example, are not doing chemsex, but when you talk to them about chemsex, they know about it and they know people who are doing it, and they are completely attracted to it and kind of curious about it. They want to know, and they are afraid of it also, because they're afraid of themselves if they go there. Yeah. But still, this attraction exists. And for me, in my work and in my thinking and in the intervention I make also publicly, I always think it's very important to talk about that, because it's there.
Yeah.
And we can make like, oh no, we don't have to do that. Because I mean, for me, for years, crystal meth was like a wall. I was not gonna go there.
Yeah.
It was no.
Yeah.
And this what made it an even stronger yes when I did it.
Absolutely.
This was like building this wall was the thing that was gonna lead me to tear it down. I mean, it's exactly that. So I feel it's and when I looked at the video, I don't see glamour. I just see, I think what I saw from the video and from this one, but also from the performance you did, I think it's more recent what you sent us, which you did when you came back to school.
Yeah. And
you sent us also footage that was used in the projection of the performance you were making. And one of the things that really struck me was this present of many silhouettes of people fucking, doing chemsex together. And so all the silhouettes are in black, and you see a lot of people. And also in the other video, this kind of superposition of many different people injecting and everything. And the voices, what I felt was that you were trying to also convey the community around chemsex. And the idea that, for me, it was really beautiful because for me in my play, for example, the person is alone. He talks about a lot of people, but he's alone on stage. And what I felt from your performance and video was kind of another take on it and say, oh, like, I feel like Mikiki was not alone or was not alone using. So
yeah, that's actually really, I am glad that you bring that up. And one of the things because I haven't felt alone in my use, and I've felt deeply connected to community. And I think one of the ways that was able to continue was through an awareness of how psychosis happens and what are the precursors, or what are the kind of conditions that are required for kind of psychosis to exist, and to try to take measures to ensure that I was kind of connected to people, that I knew to sleep and eat. I was not great at doing that until about day 4 or 5, let's be honest.
Yeah, no.
But one of the things that struck me, Gab, when you were talking earlier too, was just about that idea of isolation and loneliness, and that is a condition of queer experience now, that we that our work in our individual lives is about trying to respond to the isolation and disconnection that is just a context of contemporary life. And then when you are in a context of chemsex, you're doing a thing that is highly stigmatized, and depending on how you're doing it, if you're injecting and doing it in a way that is even more stigmatized, the potential for disconnection is so strong. And the thing that makes me happy about my history with sexualized injection drug use, or my history as a chemsexer, is about building those relationships, and also insisting that those relationships were not unimportant, that they weren't just, even if those connections don't continue, or those friendships don't exist in the same way now as they did when I was using in wild and crazy ways, those relationships were still really valid because they kept me connected. They kept me reminded of the things that I needed to do to kind of take care of myself, even if I wasn't necessarily doing them in all of those moments. But they were reminders of I still want to show up for this person. I still, I said I'm going to help this person move. I said I'm going to do these things. Those dynamics, even when we're on Tina time, are still dynamics that are valuable and kind of keep us connected, because we are in some ways the demi-monde. We are thinking about how we aren't supposed to be above ground, there's a point in when you identify, or when you feel like you are, I don't know and I don't know how this resonates with either of you, but when you recognize that chemsex or partying, it has become a part, not just a part of your identity, but a major part of your identity, and the relationship with above ground.
I felt I was not belonging anymore there.
Yeah.
For a long while, I felt like I couldn't present myself in daylight. I was not, for example, I was not anymore going to, I was normally seeing a lot of theater and seeing people and going out, and I just stopped doing it.
Yeah. I used to be a club person. I used to go dancing all the time. Now I'm trying to find my feet again to be on the dance floor. Did you feel like there was a
disconnect?
Yeah.
With the world?
I lost a big show. I had a retrospective of my drag performance work that was supposed to happen at the Provincial Gallery in Newfoundland. And I thought I was sober enough to take a Zoom call. And this is stories that we don't want to tell about ourselves. But I wasn't wearing pants or underwear. But I just had the laptop in front of me on the table. Thought it was fine. Forgot that I reached to grab something that was out of the frame. Flashed everybody. It's but also it's it's my work, right? The work that I'm going to present is going to be worse than that, right? But it was also the idea that like I had no awareness that this would like in this professional context that I had to actually be told by the institution that was what happened because I was like so not present. So, but that image, that memory haunted me. I was, so long story short, accountability process with the institution was able to kind of re-secure new dates after I'd taken some time to like do my own healing journey, blah, blah, blah. And it was a great success. Really, it's great to be also able to have opportunities to repair. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I think is so tricky about chemsex in particular, because it's a non-linear path for most of us. And I feel like when I am pulled to dive back into chaotic, problematic use patterns, it's totally like the last time, the thing that kind of allowed me to take a moment to pause and say, okay, I'm not going to do this time, was literally just looking at my calendar and all of the things that I have lined up that I put so much time into, and collaborations and relationships that I don't want to let people down with, and projects that I've spent a lot of time working on that I'm like, I don't have 18 days to throw away. And I know that I cannot do it without throwing away at least 18 straight days. And I don't have that in my schedule. I was like, okay, maybe late August. If you can give yourself until late August, then you can have 18 days. And I was like, I don't know if that's a reasonable thing to promise yourself. But also it takes it out of that. It takes the pressure off. But like once you said that it was about having that project with an end date and knowing like that you were building towards a thing, I feel like that's one of the things that being connected to the team, to a larger project that's not just about you, even though it is kind of about like manifesting a goal of yours or putting a goal of yours out into the world. I think that is one of the greatest kind of like strategies or solutions. And it's interesting that this is not available to everybody, because so many people don't see themselves as creative. So many people will say, "Oh, I'm not an artist. I'm not creative. I'm not creative." I think everybody's creative. We push it out of ourselves. But there are lots of like, this is the takeaway lesson for all of the listeners is like, find the fucking Sorry, I swear. Like,
no, we can swear here.
Okay.
Yeah.
But find the creative.
I can do the beep all the time.
Right? Yeah,
all the
just
time.
beep everything.
I'll just
I
be
say.
really like
Every fucking thing I say.
ready.
But like, find the creative thing that you have been putting off, or that gives you joy, or that, like making a mosaic out of the rocks in your garden, or whatever it is. But like, do the thing that connects you to your creativity as a way of like actually connecting to yourself.
Yeah.
The idea of recovery is complex, like language that I don't necessarily use to refer to myself, but I used to have.
You mean the word recovery?
The word recovery. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't use it to describe myself or my experience, but I feel like it matches what a lot of people talk about when they use recovery. I had really chaotic, as I've just said, chaotic and problematic like patterns around my use. And because I had a history of being a drunk and having to like figure out how to make excuses for that bad behavior, and then went to rehab for that, blah, blah, blah. I knew how to hold an emotional space. I knew how to be accountable in different ways around the context of disappointment, of frustration, of impatience that my actions and behavior were engendering in the community around me. And I also knew that I had gotten really good at manipulating that. And I was disinterested in doing that this time around. And it made me way more vulnerable, because I would find myself falling back in.
Yeah.
And then wanting to not mobilize my fluency with emotions to be able to navigate us both through that situation so that I can feel better about it, but instead just apologizing, letting it sit, and having to sit in those not great feelings. But then how, like, we want resolution. We want to make things better. We want to fix. We also want to not be punished, and we want to not be looked at or upon as if we have failed. But sometimes we fail.
Yeah, and that it's so interesting because I feel that for me, what you had about this way you were able to deal or manipulate emotions, for me was so not there. I realized for me, my chemsex journey really made me realize how far from my emotions I was. And I was not able, well, for a long time to talk about what was going on. And the only solution I had was to lie and to disappear.
Yeah.
So I could not bear the idea of talking to, I don't know, my friends I had like from my sober life, I would say, or my friends I had before chemsex, my family or people in my life, my roommates. I couldn't imagine telling them what was happening. And I couldn't, and I know I was fucking up sometime. And the only way I could deal with that was to just avoid, lie, and run away. And so for me, it became so difficult. The suffering was really in there for me, was really in this, because I hear what you're saying and I'm like, oh, I think it would have been, I mean, there's always a part of suffering in these kinds of dealing with failure and dealing with deception and dealing with things where we mess up when we do chemsex, because we always, it happens. And so I think it's always difficult, but I felt like, oh, if I would have allowed myself to be living what I'm living, it would have been probably a bit better, but I was not ready. And also, I think I was, I had, the thing that happened for me is I was not really using, I was drinking, but I was not really using drugs before crystal meth. So it kind of all happened at 27 when I was like out of school and I was supposed to like be on my way to like do things and be an adult, and I was just doing the complete opposite. And I felt like I was, and it's all in my head, but I was feeling like I was creating so much deception and so much like people were, I felt like I was, disappointing everybody, and this feeling and this idea in my mind was so present that, I was just like flying away from it. And I think that's, for me, what happened is at some point, I really had to make a choice between, okay, or I just deal with this and I figure things out, or I just do it and it's going to be just that. And I'm just going to do chemsex, because I was a bit like you said, Gab, I was trying to come back during the week and have a job and do things. And I was not, I was like failing at both. I was feeling I was failing at, I was not like enjoying completely the party, and I was not constructing something in the capitalist work in the world. I mean, I was not doing anything. So I felt like, okay, what am I doing? And so I had this kind of moment where I had to choose. And I mean, maybe this leads me to one subject that I wanted to talk to you about, guys, which is like, we talk a lot about our art and how we did art with Gab, with your struggles and some difficulties you're encountering in life. And I feel that I'm doing that also in my writing. And sometimes I'm thinking, am I like, is art only about
suffering?
Yeah, suffering and using our sufferings and to kind of, or do people want our suffering in our art? Is this what people want to see? Mikiki, I know you, I see you want to.
Could we take a piss and smoke break?
No.
Before we get into suffering?
No.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Attention all passengers, Captain Patrice speaking. We've reached our cruising altitude. We're now approaching the third leg of our YUL Creativity flight, where Montreal host Éric resumes his conversation with Gabriel and Mikiki about the tension between suffering and pleasure in the context of chemsex and the role of art in processing these experiences. More compelling stories await. Subscribe to stay updated. If you've encountered turbulence while listening to this podcast, please refer to our list of resources and services related to PNP chemsex in the episode description and on chemstories.ca.